Imagine this. You're a royal physician in the year 1834, summoned to the private chambers of Spain's recently deceased king. The nation mourns, but your task has nothing to do with grief. You've been called to preserve something. Not the king's heart, not his brain, not even his face, but the most infamous part of Ferdinand VII's body, an anatomical deformity so grotesque, so legendary, that it shaped not only his marriages, but the fate of his entire kingdom. Beneath the silk sheets lies the physical manifestation of a monarch's torment, a twisted, monstrous endowment that haunted the palace for decades, claimed the sanity of 3 queens, and turned Spain into a stage for one man's silent war against his own body. This isn't just a medical curiosity. This is the story of how one man's private curse became a public catastrophe. A tale of obsession, humiliation, and power, where royal beds became operating tables, queens became casualties, and the future of a nation hung on the cruel joke of inbreeding and anatomy. Before revolution shook the throne, before Isabella II wore a crown born of lies, there was Ferdinand VII, the most perverse king in Europe, and the body that ruled Spain. You're standing in the dim candlelight of the royal bedchamber, the air heavy with incense and the bitter metallic scent of decay. It's Madrid 1834. The king is dead, but your duties are far from over. You are the royal physician summoned not to pronounce his passing, but to perform a ritual that defies belief. Before you lies the bloated, silk-shrouded corpse of Ferdinand VII. His eyes are closed, but somehow you still feel him watching, mocking, daring you to flinch. The Queen Regent Maria Cristina stands nearby. Her face is pale, her expression unreadable, but her words chill you to your core. We must preserve everything. You hesitate. You know what she means. Not just the heart, not just the brain, those relics of royal mortality. She means that the anatomical monstrosity that has haunted palace whispers for decades. Ferdinand's most infamous possession. The grotesquely oversized, misshapen appendage that fueled the rumors, defined his insecurities, and poisoned every relationship he ever had. As you approach the body, your gloved hands tremble. You're not just preserving tissue, you're preserving a symbol of dysfunction, of shame, of political decay wrapped in royal flesh. And as you peel back the sheets, what lies beneath confirms every rumor you've heard. A horror of flesh, a grotesque marvel, a curse. To understand Ferdinand VII's tortured legacy, you must go back to the beginning. Back to October 14, 1784, when he was born at El Escorial Palace, the warped heir of a dangerously inbred dynasty. His parents, Charles IV and Maria Luisa of Parma, were first cousins united in both matrimony and malfunction. The Spanish Bourbons and Habsburgs had spent generations marrying within their own bloodlines, each union a roll of the genetic dice. By the time Ferdinand entered the world, the game had long been lost. His childhood was a study in dysfunction. His father Charles was more interested in hunting than ruling. His mother, Maria Luisa, ruled, instead openly conducting an affair with Manuel de Godoy, Spain's true power behind the throne. The court knew, Ferdinand knew, everyone knew, and the boy absorbed those early lessons. Trust no one, love is a lie, and power is everything. But it was his own body that would teach him the cruelest truth of all. As Ferdinand grew, whispers began, not about his intellect or his manners, but about it. What began as rumour among valets turned to quiet horror among physicians. The future king was developing an anatomy so deformed it defied classification. Too long, too thick, shaped not like a human organ, but like something mythological, something wrong. One court doctor wrote in a sealed journal, "His Royal Highness is possessed of a member more monstrous than majestic. Its dimensions cause pain, its shape defies nature." Another, more candid, "It begins narrow as a reed and ends like a hammer." By adolescence, Ferdinand already carried the shame. In an age that idealized the restrained, statuesque beauty of Greek male bodies, Ferdinand's grotesque endowment was an object of ridicule. What others might mistake as a blessing, he experienced as a curse, and everyone around him knew. Servants snickered behind walls, courtiers exchanged glances, foreign diplomats sent coded messages home. To them, the young prince was a walking contradiction, royalty, marred by deformity, a future king mocked by nature itself. It broke something inside him. Ferdinand's tutors began to notice changes, a growing cruelty, a seething paranoia. He lashed out at the powerless. He punished imagined slights with real pain. One day, a page boy accidentally glimpsed him dressing. The child was beaten, his family exiled. "You don't see the Prince Ferdinand," hissed. "You serve the prince." And yet he would be king. And a king must wed. At 18, he married his first cousin, Maria Antonia of Naples and Sicily. She was young, hopeful, perhaps naive. Her education had taught her music manners and scripture, but nothing had prepared her for what awaited her behind the bedchamber doors. The wedding was grand, attended by the nobility of Europe, but behind the cathedral veil, preparations were already underway for what the court called the challenge. Ferdinand's personal physician commissioned special cushions, ointments, herbal sedatives, devices crafted by royal artisans under strict secrecy. That night, Maria Antonia's scream echoed through the palace halls. "Monster," she shrieked. "What are you?" Witnesses described her backing against the wall, pale as death hands, trembling as she pointed at her husband's unclothed form. She had expected intimacy. What she saw was something else entirely. The marriage never recovered. Their attempts at producing an heir became ritualized procedures, more surgery than seduction. Doctors arranged cushions and supports like battlefield engineers. Maria Antonia was dosed with laudanum before each encounter, her cries dulled by narcotics but never silenced. Ferdinand, sensing her revulsion, spiraled deeper into obsession. He blamed her for the failures. He blamed her body. He summoned mystics, astrologers, even charlatans from foreign courts who promised miracles. They told him the shape of his member was a divine sign, a dragon's rod, a warrior's mark. But there were no miracles, only 2 miscarriages. The second nearly killed Maria Antonia. The trauma broke her. She became addicted to laudanum, wandering the palace like a ghost. Her final days were spent in tearful prayer, asking forgiveness for sins she couldn't name. She died at 21. The court said fever, but the truth was despair. Ferdinand didn't mourn her, not really. He searched her letters, questioned her ladies, accused them of conspiracy. He needed a new wife and new tools. He commissioned more devices, more cushions, more restraints. The royal workshop began producing implements more suited for an infirmary than a honeymoon suite. He chose Maria Isabel of Portugal next, 19 years old, another cousin, another lamb led to slaughter. The wedding night was worse than the first. Witnesses heard the crash of furniture, screams, blood. Maria Isabel developed a stutter, a tremor. She never spoke of that night. She didn't have to. Her eyes told the story. The trauma was complete, but Ferdinand wasn't finished. You're still in that royal chamber, hands bloodied with history, heart sick, from the burden of what you've seen. But the story of Ferdinand doesn't end with screams behind closed doors or shattered wedding nights. No, it spreads like rot through the walls of the palace, like a wound that refuses to heal. Maria Isabel, his second queen, lasted barely 2 years. After that first night, she was never the same. Witnesses say she flinched at his touch, even in public. Her ladies reported strange dreams, muttered prayers, sudden panic. At night, she woke screaming. During the day, she avoided him at all costs. The king called it betrayal. She was supposed to give him an heir. That was her purpose. And when her body refused, or when it broke beneath the strain, Ferdinand grew furious. He accused her of sabotage, of rebellion, of treason. You know how far gone he already was by then, obsessed with alchemy, with magical talismans, with herbal brews promising virility or control. Ferdinand didn't just want to father a child, he wanted to conquer nature. And when nature denied him, he punished everything and everyone around him. Doctors from across Europe were summoned, not for Maria Isabel's health, for his. He demanded remedies for his condition, some secret that would reshape his monstrous anatomy into something usable. Or at least something survivable. None succeeded. Many didn't even try. The moment they saw him, truly saw what he was, they left in silence. Those who stayed were paid handsomely and often disappeared soon after. The palace became a morgue of failed science. Then came Maria Josepha of Saxony, wife number 3. By now, Europe had heard the rumours, the shrieks, the blood, the deaths. Few royal families were willing to risk their daughters. But Saxony was desperate, bankrupt, politically weak. They sent her anyway. She was 24, not naive but not prepared either. Her arrival was quiet, her wedding modest. Ferdinand was older, more paranoid, more desperate. He had learned nothing. Or perhaps he had learned only to hide it better, to cloak cruelty in ritual. From the beginning, Maria Josepha approached the marriage like a medical challenge. She came with her own physician, her own devices. She kept a journal not of love, but of experiments. Times, positions, reactions, bleeding, pain. Every encounter was recorded like a surgical case. It wasn't affection, it was damage control. And it almost worked. For 10 years, they lived in that clinical nightmare. Carefully scheduled attempts at conception, special cushions, restraints, laudanum, observers behind curtains waiting to intervene if things went wrong. Still no heir. Until miraculously in 1829, Maria Josepha became pregnant. It should have been a miracle. Instead, it became a curse. Ferdinand lost what little remained of his mind. He saw enemies everywhere. He ordered the Queen's room sealed, guards doubled. Her food blessed by priests, her body watched by spies and midwives alike. He believed dark forces were trying to steal his heir, witches, liberals, French agents, even Satan himself. He demanded she sleep surrounded by relics. He forbade her from speaking to anyone not first approved by his priest. He banned certain foods, banned fresh air, banned anything that could possibly disrupt the divine process. And when in the 7th month she began bleeding, there was panic, chaos. Modern medicine would call it placental abruption, but this was 1829, and Ferdinand chose ritual over reason. He brought in mystics, chanting, incense. He stood at the foot of her bed like a priest of his own cult, demanding obedience from a body already failing. His child was born too early. A daughter, she lived a few hours. Maria Josepha died 3 weeks later, racked by infection and grief. Ferdinand didn't weep, he searched. He dissected every event, every moment, every movement. He blamed the midwives, the doctors, God, then himself, then no one. The Queen's body was preserved under lock and key, a death mask made, stored next to those of the first 2 wives. Ferdinand often stared at them, talking aloud, asking questions, demanding answers no one could give. He hadn't just failed as a husband, he had failed as a man. And that failure echoed across a kingdom already falling apart. Spain by then was crumbling, South America was gone, its colonies lost to rebellion and war, the treasury empty, the people starving. And still Ferdinand's focus remained trapped in the bedroom. He commissioned new devices, new surgical tools, sent agents across Europe in search of miracle cures. Ottoman artisans, German engineers, even rumoured alchemists from Persia were consulted. His chambers became a perverse museum of medical desperation, part infirmary, part torture chamber. Then came Maria Christina, the 4th queen, and Ferdinand's final hope. She arrived already pregnant by another man, but Ferdinand, mad with denial, accepted her anyway. The child, he insisted, was his, God's gift, a divine deception, anything to preserve his lineage, anything to avoid the truth. The child Isabella II was born in 1830. Ferdinand proclaimed her his heir. But he didn't believe it, not really. He watched Maria Christina constantly, spied on her prayers, her meals, her interactions. He had peepholes installed between their rooms, mirrors angled for surveillance, servants interrogated over whispers and glances. No act of hers went unrecorded, no breath went unjudged. Maria Christina moved like a prisoner, and Isabella, sweet innocent Isabella, became the living symbol of Ferdinand's greatest lie. A daughter he loved because she was his future, a daughter he hated because she was his proof of failure. In the final years, Ferdinand's madness consumed everything. Cabinet meetings were cancelled so he could observe his wife undress. Ministers replaced based on imagined slights. Whole provinces ignored as he fixated on whether Isabella's nose looked more like his or like one of Maria Christina's rumoured lovers. He conducted midnight raids of her chambers. He demanded her letters be read aloud in court. He accused the Queen's priest of witchcraft. And all the while, Spain bled. The people watched their king unravel, powerless to stop it. The empire once mighty was now a ghost, haunted by a man who mistook his anatomy for destiny, his pain for prophecy. And when he finally died in 1833, it wasn't with dignity, it was with rot. The final autopsy, conducted in secret, revealed what the world had always whispered: a member over 14 inches long, misshapen, scarred, warped beyond function, and deeper still, evidence of self-mutilation. A lifetime of silent, desperate attempts to fix himself, to cut away the curse, but he couldn't. No one could. So you, the royal physician, preserve it, not for science, not for legacy, but because the Queen Regent insisted, because history demanded it. A piece of flesh that destroyed 3 queens, humiliated a kingdom, and turned one man's shame into a national tragedy. You wrap it in silk, place it in a box, and seal it away, forever. You seal the box shut with trembling hands. It's over. Almost, but you know better, because even in death, Ferdinand is not done. That cursed body, the twisted length of flesh you've just preserved, is more than a medical anomaly. It's the rotten root of an entire era. An era where one man's anatomy became state policy, where whispers in the palace bedroom echoed across oceans, where the shape of a king's body reshaped the fate of a nation. Spain in 1833 is not the Spain it once was. The colonies are gone. South America has broken free. The economy is in tatters. The army exhausted. The people starving. And yet for years, Ferdinand's focus had remained obsessed with only one thing: legitimacy. He had to be a man. He had to be a father. He had to produce an heir. And when he couldn't, when his monstrous form denied him that most basic duty, he unraveled. But rather than accept his fate, Ferdinand rewrote the rules. He declared Isabella his successor, though everyone knew she was born of another man. The law of male succession was twisted to make room for her. The courtiers bowed, the church nodded, the nation watched in stunned silence. They all understood what was at stake. They weren't preserving a monarchy, they were preserving a lie. Maria Christina IV, and final queen, became both mother and regent. Her role was to maintain the illusion, to pretend her child was royal, to keep the kingdom breathing while its head of state decayed in body and mind. But even then, especially then, Ferdinand did not trust her. He tore apart her letters, spied on her visitors, had guards stationed in her closet and food tasters sample her milk. Every smile was a plot, every whisper a rebellion. He believed her to be in secret communication with the devil, with foreign agents, with liberal revolutionaries. It didn't matter how absurd the claim. If it aligned with his fear, it became truth. The court, once a place of learning music debate, became a paranoid fortress. Ministers walked in silence. Servants wept in private. The walls themselves seemed to hum with dread. And Ferdinand, he became more ghost than man, pale, thin, twitching, his skin blotched with ulcers, his breath always short, his words half-formed, muttered in broken Latin or whispered prayers. He clutched relics in his sleep, shouted accusations in his dreams. You'd see him on the rare occasions he still left his chambers dragged along in his chair, skeletal, blank-eyed, but even then always guarded. Always surrounded by doctors and priests, as if the presence of holy men could cleanse what centuries of inbreeding had cursed. His body, his infamous, impossible body, had become a prison, not just for him, but for all of Spain. And then quietly it stopped. September 1833. No deathbed proclamation, no royal fanfare. Ferdinand simply slipped into unconsciousness and never came back. His breathing slowed, his muscles relaxed. The monster finally quieted. He died at 49. The cause? The court physicians wrote gout in the record books. But you know better. You were there. You saw the tremors, the starvation, the slow collapse. You preserved the body. And when you made the final incisions, what you found wasn't just medical. It was spiritual. It was symbolic. That grotesque anatomy, his so-called weapon, his so-called curse, was warped almost beyond recognition. The length, the thickness, the unnatural bend. Tissue that shouldn't have grown, scars that shouldn't have been there, and deeper still signs of past self-inflicted wounds. Surgical attempts made in secret. Cut here, burn there, desperate, delusional. He had tried to fix himself over and over, and every time he failed. You catalogued it all, you made the sketches, wrote the notes, then placed it in the velvet-lined box the Vatican requested. The last secret of a king who ruled with pain and died in it. It's still there today, locked away in a vault under Rome, unlabeled, unmarked, a relic too scandalous for museums, too human, for legend too tragic for forgiveness. Ferdinand VII didn't just break his wives, he broke Spain. His reign wasn't marked by victories or reforms or wisdom. It was marked by surveillance, by screams, by dead queens, by ghost daughters, by the tightening grip of fear, the irony. The only child to survive him, Isabella II, wasn't even his. Yet she wore the crown. In her face, the courtiers searched for echoes of Ferdinand. In her voice, the bishops listened for strength. But always in the back of their minds was that question, the one no one dared ask aloud. Whose blood is on that throne that's Ferdinand's legacy? Not the policies, not the proclamations, but the silence, the shame, the way a single body could become a nation's shadow, the way anatomy became ideology, the way dysfunction became destiny. And what of Maria Cristina? She ruled in his place, as regent, as mother, as puppet. She tried to hold the kingdom together while the vultures circled, while civil war loomed, while old nobles whispered that the true heir should be Don Carlos Ferdinand's brother, not a child born from an inconvenient truth. The Carlist Wars tore the nation apart, and Isabella, she ruled, briefly, poorly, and then was gone, another monarch crushed beneath the weight of Ferdinand's shame. So here you are, royal physician, standing in the royal crypt, watching the lid close on the last piece of a broken man. And you wonder, what if Ferdinand had been born normal? What if his body had been kind? Would Spain have flourished? Would Maria Antonia still be alive? Would Maria Isabel have sung lullabies instead of screaming in the dark? Would Maria Josepha have died, holding a living child? Would Maria Cristina have known peace instead of paranoia? You'll never know, no one will, because history remembers kings by their conquests. But this one, this king, he'll be remembered by what he could never conquer himself.